It's time for Cats Talk Wednesday. Small town and big city joined forces. Vinny Hardy of Lynch, Kentucky, and Terry Brown of Louisville, Kentucky, team up to give you free-flowing, laid-back sports talk. Focus on Kentucky Wildcats, as well as pertinent information in the NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball.
We back at it on another Wednesday evening. Cast Talk Wednesday, BS3 Network. Terry Kittle Brown in here. Vinny Hardy.
Hello.
What's going on, man?
Good to be here. It's middle of May, and it's good.
Yeah, for sure. Got the George Kittle in here on like you said, middle of May. Oh, excuse me. So yeah. That's I wasn't ready for that one. I thought maybe a Magic or Kobe, but the Kittle was a little curveball today, man. But you said for schedule release,
got the schedule release, kicking off first game in Australia, and ending up playing the Vikings in Mexico. So again, your 49ers are going to be leading the league in air miles traveled. Which is insane. It is absolutely insane, but that's kind of what happens to us. We always run at a rest deficit. When you look at who gets the short weeks and things like that, 3 out of the last 5 years, the Niners have been a full 30 games worse than everybody else. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy.
Y'all might just have to go south of the border to beat Minnesota though, because the last couple times you played them in Minneapolis, so maybe Mexico City y'all might get them down there.
We haven't won in Minneapolis since '88. It is ridiculous. Yeah,
Anthony Carter and them.
I know we've beaten them, but it's generally in the playoffs. In the rare time in Minneapolis. But yeah, it's crazy, and I'm not going back up there. Nice people, it's great, but that's a lot of money to watch your team not win. And we made Kirk Cousins look great year one. I was like, this dude ain't 75% of his passes. That seemed like an awful lot. And then the next year they looked good again. I'm like, nah, this is not great. Now the Minnesota fans are nice. It's great. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great stadium. But nah, I can't be.
And this is. I wish I could cleanse my mind, but the memory I think of. You probably know where I'm going. If I just randomly think 49ers Vikings, top of my head is that was it 100-yard run Steve Young had against them. I think it was them, and he makes fun of himself because he tripped and fell the last 5 yards, and it wasn't great. It wasn't graceful, but he was a great athlete. I mean, dual threat, scrambling to do. I mean, you can't take nothing from him. Lefty running, scrambling, but he tripped. The turf monster got him at the 7, and it was ugly. But he broke I don't know how many tackles. He was really he was basically a running back out there, and that's if I think 49ers Vikings, that's the first thing that pops in my mind. So,
there was for me. There's this game. Oh, what was the game? I'm looking. Oh, here it is. My game, 49ers Vikings. It was 30. So it was at 1995. It was Monday Night Football, and 12/18/95. Jerry caught 14 passes for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns, and this was the same. This was the end of the year, the same year he broke the touchdown record, and he just, as for a receiver, we talk about that Emmett game where it's like we're gonna just keep putting this in your belly. Mm-hmm. He was just, I had not seen a receiver just be like, I'm open, and so that's one of my favorite Minnesota 49er games. Although. Minnesota, I don't know if I shared this week. Minnesota did have a Terry Brown that played for him, and he was a defensive back. So there you go.
There you go. There you go. So we're gonna get into all kind of fun stuff like that. Got a guest coming up in about 7-8 minutes. Friend of the show, Terry Hanson, is gonna be on here. He was the head of TBS. Spent a lot of time with Ted Turner. Been on with us before talking about getting the dream game up, Kentucky and Louisville, and the Georgetown, Virginia game with Patrick Ewing and Ralph Sampson. So we'll get Terry on, talk about his time with Ted Turner, who just passed away last week, owner of the Braves and Hawks and CNN, and so many other things. We'll talk about that with Terry. Be double Terry's on here again, so that's always a good thing for y'all. He's in the building. I don't know if we even talked about it. Mark Pope did have his Q&As. He had 3 of them after the Let's Talk BBN hit me up first tweet. And your thoughts on it? It was.
I'm glad he said something. Like it's very much damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Kind of situation, because we're all to the point of we need something tangible. Like I'm glad I think he answered questions about as well as he could, right? Like he's not going to give you the behind the curtain on why a certain recruitment went a certain way. Like that's not going to happen. And I think if you're expecting that, you're never going to get that. But I thought for what it was, I thought it was pretty good. But at the end of the day, we're to that point now where it's like we gotta get it done. And I hate being in that position, but okay, like you're saying you understand, you get it. I understand why you signed these guys. And look, that's part of my mind frame is I've got to say, okay, we missed out on player X, Y, and Z, but there's still players on the team. We are going to field the team next year. Let me look into these guys and kind of set expectations that way for the dudes that did come. You don't worry about the ones that didn't. This is going to be the baseline for who comes back, and let's focus on that. I know Moreno has a decision to make, and I hope he comes back. I think he's leaning that way, or most people feel that's the case, but I think that's going to be a big deal. That's a game changer, right? And so I got no problem with Pope. He had to put it out. The problem is nobody is saying anything about anything. The whole Mitch situation happened at UK, and nobody said anything. Mitch had that one interview where he called us all dumb or whatever the phraseology, and he said he was going to make some hay or something, whatever that was. But we haven't heard anything, and we need something. We need something positive. I know, coaches don't ordinarily do that, but we had a lot of misses, man. You need to come out here and speak to the troops and say, look, I got it. And I thought that was pretty good. Tip my cap, but same time, we got to see what happens in November.
Yeah. And if he went 28-6 last year, he wouldn't have to do that this off season. So like it goes back to, Al Davis just win baby, basically.
Right.
But if you're 28-6, we're not wondering why you haven't said anything, or you're not having to do the Twitter Q&A. Right. Everybody's like, oh yeah, we heading in the right direction. Yeah, 128 games in year 2. This tracks according to coaches who are gonna make it in Kentucky. Right. He's on the right path.
Right. And that's my only thing is give me something more than just I hope. And he gave his rationale, and I don't have to believe it. Other people don't have to believe it, but he explained this is our thought process on how we're doing this. I appreciate that, but we can't just hope. Got to have a plan.
Yeah, and so right now, hoping that Moreno returns, like you said, looks he'll decide what he decides. Cam Williams was showing signs last year before the foot injury that he could do his thing. So he comes back in year 2. That's another thing you can be confident in. Okay, well, he showed that he can do this. Him and Malachi, that'll be a nice little 1-2. You hope to Zoom Diallo and Wilkins and Frank Kepnang and all these other additions. You hope they come in and fit in and make the adjustment. A lot of hope. You talk about hope. A lot of hope is on this Braden Hawthorne. Now he might absolutely ball out, but we be in Tayshaun mode, we in Perry Stevenson mode, trying to put weight on him. He still hasn't played, so he's a big unknown. A lot of talent allegedly in practice and all this, but hasn't done it over the course of a full season. So there's a lot of hoping Braden can do it. To your point, back to that hope again.
It's a lot of hope. It's a lot of it's. I just think it's more question marks than Kentucky fans are used to having by year 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people are tired of me saying that, but by year 3, go back and look. Questions are answered. What did Cal do year 3? By year 3, what had Tubby done? What's Patino's year 3? What Joe B. Hall's year 3? What's Eddie Sutton's year 3?
Yeah.
And so I just think there's a lot of question marks that we're just not used to having. That's my 2 cents. I want Kentucky to be back at the big boys table. You and I have talked about it. The worst I've ever felt as a Kentucky fan, and I keep saying this, was that 09 season. It was college game day, Kentucky, North Carolina. They talking to Tyler Hansbrough and all this, what North Carolina would eventually win a championship. And they said, well, what about Kentucky? And them dudes laughed. And I'm like, I don't want to be dismissed like that.
Yeah.
Not even that they're a terrible team. Like, okay, if they're just outright terrible, okay. But if it's just like, man, I don't want to be mad.
Yeah.
Like, let's be spectacularly bad. Let's be 9-win bad. Let's do that. But don't be,
Mm-hmm.
That's my 2 cents on that. But I'm hoping that Pope is able to right the ship. I do think there's some things he can build on. You bring back who he talked about, and you kind of hope, but we'll see. And it's only going to get tougher because my hometown school is getting tougher. I know they've kind of won the offseason yet again. I don't know if I buy into that because I don't think Kelsey is that dude because they haven't beaten anybody.
Nope. Sure haven't.
Like, they're a far cry from the Kenny Payne years, but they haven't beat anybody.
Mm-hmm.
The ACC has been terrible. And they play anybody with a pulse, they're getting run.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I get it. They beat Kentucky, which, okay, good for them, but they almost let that one get away.
Right.
So, that I think we talked about at the time, that was a game where I don't think anybody, like, you're happy that your team won and you're sad your team lost, but I don't think anybody felt great about it.
Yep.
Because I follow a lot of Louisville fans or whatever, and they thought it was going to be a boat race. Like, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, man, if this gets to 30 and they win by 30, this is an all systems failure because I don't think it's ever been like this, ever.
Mm-hmm.
As it was, the 8-point loss was still the worst in 25 years. That's how bad this thing has gone. Louisville wins close when they win.
Mm-hmm.
And Kentucky takes them to the woodshed more often than not. That's just the way this thing goes.
Mm-hmm.
So you up big, you think that you're going to have a cakewalk, and now you get the lemon booty in the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game to get this one home. So I don't know. Like they saying the right kind of things about Kelsey and all this kind of stuff, but man, I don't. And that's the thing too is Louisville fans know what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Their coach is a little bit longer tenure than ours, but they knew early on Denny Crum, because I think it was early on. He moved over and got Louisville to the Final Four.
Okay.
In 74, 75. I'd have to look it up. But
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, because he was assistant for John Wooden forever and ever, moved over, got Louisville to the Final Four. Oh, okay. Okay. And then with a couple years after that, then it's boom, Darrell Griffith and them, right? So Louisville fans knew early on with Crum, okay, all right. And of course, with Pitino, hit the ground running. So they know what it looks like. The people on Twitter may be like, no, man, they know what it looks like when you get it going. And I hate people putting me in the position to have to defend Louisville fans.
Yeah.
But they know what it looks like.
Yeah,
to get that thing going.
Yep, they sure do. Speaking of Louisville, flipping to the football side, Will Stein was on with Michael Bennett, Just the Cat Radio, who we hosted that show for him a few years back. And he said that, he's all for keeping the Kentucky Louisville series alive, the Governor's Cup. And he's for putting it as the first game of the year, quote, where it belongs. So you having it for the first game of the year? You rather be at the end, or where you feel about where you come out on all that?
So with the new world order and the expanded playoff that's coming, put it at the beginning.
Ooh.
I have been a person, I preferred it at the end because there's always that rivalry weekend, right? You got Florida State, Georgia Tech. That's where Texas and Texas A&M play. I know I'm missing a few.
Iron Bowl, Egg Bowl.
Yeah, right. The game, Michigan, Ohio State is that last game of the year. And I thought that would be a great showcase of Kentucky versus Louisville. The problem was it didn't really meet those other standards. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to say that Mississippi State has had great football teams, but those teams really hate each other and they've played every year. Like I want to, and we've talked about this. I think the Kentucky-Louisville rivalry across the board is the best because I have been to hockey games, women's soccer, across the board. Those teams go for blood that I don't think Duke and Carolina women's tennis or Michigan, Ohio State swing and diving does. Kentucky-Louisville, it's bitter across the board.
Yep.
I've been to, again, multiple women's soccer games, yellow cards coming out, and we just started. It is physical. Like, we've had coaches on here like, we want to beat those dudes and those ladies, right? I just don't think it translates. The problem is when you have that 40-year gap where they didn't play, that's crazy.
No.
When you look at between 78 and 86, the championships, the All-Americans, why Goose Givens and Darrell Griffith couldn't play?
No.
They didn't play. That just seems crazy that they just didn't play. And so I think that misses a little bit. And the games haven't been very good. If we're being honest, like they haven't been aesthetically pleasing. And that's how you build the brand. I think, Florida State became a thing because one, that game meant something on the national picture. Lose or go home, except for 96 where they played again in the Sugar Bowl. But those games used to mean something nationally as well as great football games. That's one thing I've said about the men's basketball games. They haven't been great games. Kentucky's won a lot of them, but we haven't really gotten those moments that and part of it's because the ESPN thing and Duke Carolina gives you these moments. But think of all the men's basketball games. What really stands out? Sparks's free throws, DA getting parallel on Nate Johnson.
Yeah.
Like there's been a few of those, but
That's
nothing
30
that's
years
like,
ago.
right. Patrick Sparks is 20 something at this point.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
the game's just, I think more about, Boogie putting his forearm in Shropshire's face more than that was a great game. And part of that is Louisville has to muck it up. That's part of it. I'd much rather I like playing North Carolina. This last year, notwithstanding, that was an ugly game. But most of the games is like, oh, you want to get in the 90s? We want to play in the 90s too. And it's just, let's see what we got.
Up and down, yo.
It's up and down, up and down, up and down. So, but moving the football game, like here in Iowa and Iowa State, it's game 2. And it's a polite rivalry, but I can understand you do that, you get it out. I can understand the benefit of now we can focus on the conference.
I agree with. I mean, I understand everything you said, but I still would like to see the football game stay at the end with all the other rivalry games. And whether it does or not, that's a different story. I like it with all the other interstate rivalries, even Oregon State, Arizona State, Iron Bowl, all that. And also, because we get our guest back there, I also like Will Stein. Just bring it on, because love Stoops, but towards the end you could tell he was reluctant and didn't really look forward to it being a 9-game SEC schedule. Stein's like, I don't care, keep Louisville. If we plan 12 SEC teams, bring it all on. So I'm here for all of that. But,
well, and that's the thing too. I know we got our guests. We're going to talk about. I miss coaches, managers being characters. I know we're going to touch a little bit on Bobby Cox, but I'm watching some of these games. I don't know who the managers are. Like, it's just there's nothing. I need some emotion.
They can't be now because you got everything's automated. There's nothing to argue. You got the robots and all that. But we're getting all that with our guest, longtime friend of the show. Look, if we try to list everything he's done, we run out of time. But he was the head of TBS, Turner Broadcasting Sports, NAIA Men's Soccer Coach of the Year, owns Hanson Enterprises. He was on the John Boy and Billy Big Show. He was a pitcher in his baseball playing days. He was a coach. He's also a Terry. So we got 2 Terrys now. Our good buddy Terry Hanson is here to talk about Ted Turner and so many other things. Terry, sir, how are we doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty well. Hey, preach on, Terry Brown. I was listening to you, man. I like it.
That's what everybody tells him. Everybody says, preach, Terry, preach.
Well, I just want managers to bring some, there were characters, right? Like, we don't have that anymore. Everything's kind of gone corporate on the college side. You can't get as fiery on the MLB side. Bring that back.
Well, you know what? That's social media, man. I mean, everybody doesn't want to be called out on social media to stand out, so everybody kind of steps back and don't take a step forward. Like the guy that I work for, as Vinny's going to talk about, and Ted Turner, he took leaps forward. And a lot of people were playing it safe right now. And that's our problem. I like characters too.
And it makes a lot of sense. You guys both are like 2 peas in a pod as far as thinking big and thinking outside the box and taking risks. And I mean, you guys really kind of gelled with that, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, man, I was never the smartest guy in the world. And the secret to me is you got to know what you don't know. So I went in there with Ted, and he really did teach me how to think big. But my whole career was based on A, coaching, and B, what I learned on the streets in East St. Louis. I mean, that gave me savvy, and that gave me things that I could pull out, that I could try to do. And I grew up there, and right now I might add I'm active there now. I'm doing some work with Jackie Jonah Kersey. I'm mentoring her academy, so I'm giving back to my hometown in East St. Louis, and I'm very, very pleased to do that.
Yeah, man. the two of y'all from the same place, you and Jackie Joyner Kersey, and now y'all are connected and helping the community. They are fortunate to have both y'all.
I'm getting on the East St. Louis Historical Society. I got a call one day back in October, and I didn't recognize the number. And she said, "Is this Terry Hanson?" I said, "It is." And she goes, "This is Jackie Joyner Kersey." And I went, "Whoa." And so she asked me if my wife and I would come down to their day at a 25th gala for her foundation anniversary. And so we went, and I loved it at 425 people. And I love when I'm a minority. It was kind of cool. Really loved. I sat with her track coach in high school and everybody else. And so, yeah, I'm my daughter and Amy and I went over to a meeting in East St. Louis. We drove over there. And like I said, in a minority, and I think it's pretty cool to have the shoe on the other foot.
Yep.
You talked about Ted Turner for a second, and somebody asked, and in fact, a lady from the East St. Louis Historical Society asked me about this. Ted was he was a climate guy, and he was also really into civil rights. He hired a lady at the company by the name of Zernona Clayton, and she had marched with Dr. King and Nelson Mandela. She'd been to them all. And he also hired the first black general manager in all of baseball, Bill Lucas. And Bill died when he was 43, but I got to meet him when I was there. So he put Zernona on the board of Turner Broadcasting. That's how smart this guy was, because Atlanta racial makeup in those point days, you got to play the game. You can't be obstinate as a white person. You got to go in and play the game. And he knew how to do that. And he brought those people on board. And a lot of people don't think he was that liberal and that progressive, but he was. He was a lot of things. And like I told you before, and he was my hero.
And his first time laying eyes and ears on you, you were broadcasting a game. He just happened to be in his hotel watching a game you were calling. Is that right?
Yeah. What are the chances of that? I mean, first of all, it's like, and Vinny, it's like building a resume, and so do you, Terry. I mean, when I was in college coaching, they put basketball games on cable TV in a city of 11,000 people. And it was going to be on TV. And I said, "So who's going to do the games?" And this guy said, "I don't know. We're going to look." And I go, "I'll do them." "You'll do them?" I said, "Sure." I didn't know what I was doing. But then when I got into the pros, people said, "Have you ever done television?" I said, "Oh, of course." So that's kind of how I landed. And I was on TV in Washington with John Miller, who you know from ESPN baseball days. And what's the chances? We're on the game and we're doing it. And Ted's sitting in a hotel room, and he had bought a team, and I did not know that. And in fact, he didn't buy a team; he bought TV programming, like with the Braves. That's what he wanted. So he's sitting in the hotel room, and he sees me, and he has a guy call me the next day and said, "We'd like you to come down here and do our games." And I said, "Well, okay, but what's my job?" Guys, "That's a job." And I go, "Well, not really. It's broadcasting. I mean, that didn't take up much of my time." He goes, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "I'm the assistant general manager of the Washington Diplomats." And he said, "Well, come on down here. We'll make you the general manager of the team." And that's what I did. That's how I got there.
Right. So this was
Weird.
The Diplomats were a soccer team in DC, right?
They were, yes.
Okay.
And they were, I was there. My office was at RFK Stadium.
Oh, wow.
And that was pretty cool. And so, yeah, and our owners had a lot of money. They owned the giant food stores. You ever heard of them? They own that chain. So we had a lot of money, and I liked it up there. And whoever figured out I'd get to Atlanta, but I was all about baseball too. I went to DC because at that point in time, the San Diego Padres were coming to DC, and even though I'm a soccer guy, I want to get into baseball. So at the last hour, Ray Kroc rescued them for San Diego. So so okay with soccer. And then when Ted called me, I thought, the Braves. And so I went down there for soccer, but I'm really hoping to get into baseball.
Man, unbelievable. So you were gonna broadcast the Braves. They took you down there to be a GM for the Braves or broadcast for the Braves.
Both.
Okay.
When he introduced me at a news conference, he said, "This guy right here is like getting a suit with two pair of pants." And then if I'm feeling all good about myself, and I was hoping to be. A week later, I saw him in the stadium club, and he said, and he asked the other guy I'm with me, "So how are the Cougars getting along in their sales?" And the guy said, "Who?" "The Cougars." He said, "Who's that?" He goes, "Those soccer guy. That's the Chiefs, Ted." And then he introduced himself to me. "Hi, I'm Ted Turner." I said, he had forgot me in like a week, and he didn't know what the name of the team was. But I teamed up with your friend Vinny, Bob Neal. He was my partner, and we went into the Superstation all around the country. And soccer was getting new in all these cities, and my job was to teach the game of soccer and the rules to newbies. And it's so ironic because when I coached soccer, I didn't know anything about it. And then 4 years later, I'm teaching it to the nation.
Wow. Unbelievable. So if Ted never hears you on TV, what direction do you think your life goes? What do you think you end up doing? And what path do you think, if you had to guess? I know you mean.
Well, I've always said this. I probably would end up being a high school baseball coach in the St. Louis area. I was offered a job with the Cardinals when I was in college, and that was my dream, to work for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I was offered a job, and with Joe Cunningham, who was one of my heroes when I was a kid growing up. He played, and I took the job. And 10 days later, they called me and they said that Anheuser-Busch had put a freeze on the hiring because of the energy crisis. This was back in '73, and so imagine if I'd have taken the job at the Cardinals, my career would have stopped right there. And I've fallen into so many things and lucked out, and the Lord's been with me, I think. And everything's happened to me has been nothing but roses.
The TV man, jump in anytime. Don't let me just hog Terry.
Oh no, I love it. I know it, kind of with what happened last week. I know you've shared some stories on Ted Turner, and I think we throw around this phrase a lot, like there's only one of that guy.
Yep.
Like there's only one of that guy. Because when you look at any one thing that Ted Turner did, it would have been amazing for one lifetime.
Right.
But he did a lot of stuff, like stuff we take for granted, like the 24-hour news network. Like it's so ubiquitous now, right? For that, oh yeah, one guy kind of thought that up. And the Cartoon Network, hey, like you said, Terry, like he wanted broadcasting, he wanted programming, and he was just this genius of, we didn't even know what we wanted as a society, but he said, this is what I'm going to give you. And the world is different because of it.
Current classic movies came on, and I mean,
Yeah.
everybody loved those movies.
Yeah.
And I was there when he started CNN, and in fact, we were at a party one night, and he said to everybody, "Listen, I got to go leave. I'm starting a news network." I mean, and he left, and he had that big announcement. I didn't even know it was coming, and everybody said they called it the Chicken Noodle Network because everybody was making fun of him, and they were losing $11 million a month. And he had the money, and as I've used the term before, and he had the testicular fortitude to stay with it, and he turned it into something. And the first thing that really got people turned on to it, ironically, and you guys are too young for this, but there was a little girl in Texas by the name of Jessica, and there was an open well, and she fell down the open well, okay. And CNN was all over it, and the nation was captivated, and they stayed with it, and they stayed with it, and they stayed with it, and the ratings just shot through the roof. And then he had a company, Ted, he had a company meeting and he said, now look, we're making it, folks. Now, I'm not saying that people ought to leave candy bars outside of wells or anything like that. He said, but hey, we'll do anything we can to be on the air. He's a funny man.
I think
You
you're
there?
muted, man.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Question from Michelle, our number one fan for years. She said, "Did Ted ever remarry? He seems like he led a semi-private life." She said she's mainly a sports fan, but I know it was Jane Fonda. But
he had his first wife's name. I can't remember. Then he had one named Jane, and then he had another one named Jane Fonda, of course. And the funny story with her, I left there, and we'll talk about that later. In '84, and in '85 or '86, I was walking through the Atlanta airport, and he starts hollering at me, and I hadn't seen him in a long time, and he's hollering at me, and I see him, and he's at this gate, and I go walking up there, and I see this figure from behind, and it's somebody wearing a leather jacket, tight jeans, and high heels. And I'm walking up and I'm thinking, whoa. And I got up there and he goes, Terry, you know Jane. I went, I know of Jane. It was Fonda. And she stepped back and she looked me over. And she looked at me and she sized me up. And she goes, you watched Barbarella, didn't you? And that was one of her movies, Barbarella. And I said, I did. She goes, yeah, your age, you guy. Yeah, I know you watched it. And I did. Funnier than heck. And she's been on the air talking about the love affair they had, and they did. I mean, he called her. She just got divorced from Tom Hayden, and he called her and he said, "Hey, is it true you're divorced? Let's go out." She said, I've just lost a marriage. Call me in 6 months, and 6 months to the day he called her, and they started going out, and
wow.
she was just enamored by him because there were so many phony people in Hollywood, and this guy was anything but phony.
Unbelievable. Got a couple pictures that you sent, so I will pop one of them up here. We got
There you go.
that one there.
That's my wife on the right, 56 years, Patty. And then there's Ted. We called him R.E.T. because his real name was Robert E. Turner. But we called him R.E.T. at work, and that's me when I was a little heavier in my life. But that was in he died in 2007, 26. That had been 2018 or 19 when that was taken.
Okay. So yeah, and the fact that even though you moved on, you didn't burn a bridge. You mentioned that he was still happy to see you. Hated that he let you get away too, right?
It's a funny story. I mean, a funny story. I mean, I'm a little obstinate. And we got along okay, but I mean, I'm strong-willed, and so is he. And I've never been intimidated by people. So he mandated that I go to Cuba to do a baseball game, and I really, really didn't want to go. And he was duck hunting with Fidel Castro of all people, and he said he wants you to come down and do the Cuban All-Star baseball game. And I went, what? He goes, yeah, I want you to go to Cuba. And I said, I'm going to go to Cuba. He goes, but I promised Fidel, and you're going to like him. I said, I'm going to like him. So I had to go down to Cuba and did a baseball game, and it was on my customs passport for all those years because we weren't supposed to go, and I kept getting a look-see. I couldn't even get a clearance for Nancy Reagan with the White House when I was in golf because I had a blip on my record because of Cuba. So then in '84, he had the Goodwill Games, which I called the Russian Olympics. And I kept telling him that it was a horrible idea. And because I would tell him what I thought. He liked that, quite frankly. But I said, this is a terrible idea. And he said, well, get on board because we're going to do it. And so then I was going to have to go to Russia. And I said, look, I don't want to go to Russia. He goes, well, you're going to have to. So then I pitched him the idea, let me stay in Atlanta and work with the Braves and the Hawks and do all those properties, and you guys go have fun in Russia. And he said no, but then he came back around and he said, okay. Well, in the interim, a friend of mine was working at the PGA Tour, called me and said, would you come down here and interview for a job? I said, I don't even like golf. He goes, yeah, I know, but, I told them I could lure you for an interview. So I went down there just to placate my friend, and I talked to Dane Beeman and all that stuff. So I get back to Atlanta, and in 2 weeks, everything goes to hell over in Russia. And he says to me, you have to go to Russia. I said, Ted, I told you I'm not going to Russia. He said, well, you have to. So this is on my mind. And then PGA Tour called and said, okay, you got the job. So I went to him and I said, hey, listen, I'm leaving. You're leaving? I said, yeah, I'm going to golf. I said, yeah. He goes, why? And I said, well, it's a nice place to live down there. I don't want to go to Russia. Well, look, what if you don't can go to Russia? And how much money you want to stay here? And I said, Ted, look, I already taken the job in Florida. And I said, it's not all about the money, man. And he said to his secretary, D. Woods, get in here and write this down. The day, the date, and the time when Hanson says it's not all about the money. And then he stood up. He stood up. He said, well, good luck. Shook my hand. And that was it. And I left and I went to golf. And we kept in touch over the years. But like you said, he said he said to his secretary recently, how did I ever let him get out of here? And I had one flirtation. And not a lot of people knew this, but I was offered, he was looking into me taking a very, very big job with the Braves when I was in Florida. And I was all interested in it, but it never matured. So I ended up in Charlotte with Raycom.
Man, so you went from golf to Raycom, which that was Charlotte and the John Boy and Billy Big Show after that, right?
Yeah, when I first got to town, and you're a fan, and Terry, I don't know if you ever heard John Boy and Billy, but it's an acquired taste. I first got the first week I was there, they asked me to come on the show, and I did, and I they were a big show and playing work big show in Charlotte. They were the number one. And so I went on the show, and they liked my background and all that. And then I became a buddy of John Boy's. He has a son with Down syndrome, and I did Down syndrome work when I was in Atlanta. And I fell in love with his son. My wife and I both did, and that created a bond between Johnny and his wife Eve and us. And we were really, really good friends. And so he came to my house this one day, and he said, "Hey, you know who Mel Karmazin is?" I said, "I do. He's the guy that syndicated Howard Stern." And he said, he wants to syndicate us. I said, "Man, that's great." He goes, "No, it's not. I'd have to move to Atlanta. I ain't moving." And I go, "You're not?" He said, "You know anything about syndication?" And I knew TV syndication, but not radio, but I put a model together. And in 2 years, those guys like quadrupled their salaries. So they hired me as a consultant in 1995. And I was paid as a consultant through 2020, and then in 2013 they asked me to go on air, and I said I'm not. And the cat's out of the bag now, and you know this. I said I'm not going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, no way. And they said, "Well, we have a surprise for you." I said, "What's that?" Said, "Well, we're going to pre-record, so my hours for John Boy and Billy." 6 to 10 a.m., 6 days a week. My actual working hours were Monday through Wednesday, 11 to 3. Go figure. For a big boy salary, too.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Just unbelievable.
And Vinny, I'll tell the story on Vinny, Terry, if you don't know it. I'm at the big show, and I get this email from Vinny, and he says he wants to be in the media. And I'm I like to help everybody. So he and I are going back and forth and back and forth. So he said he wanted to meet me, and I think he came up to Asheville, right, Finney? Did you come to Asheville?
Yeah, we came.
And tell him that you're here to see me. And I went out there, and I'm looking. I don't know, find him. I did not know we had any black viewers for John Boy and Billy. I didn't even know. I was not looking for Vinny, and then I heard a story, and I went, "This is great." So I had you do some pieces for me on the John Boy and Billy show, and so that was on your resume, writing for John Boy and Billy. And then you presently, I don't know if you know this or not, Terry. He's a employee of my company, Hanson Enterprises. And what you've gone from asking for my help to now doing this, you and Terry, man, I'm so proud of you.
Just trying, man. Like this was TV. This was before social media or podcasting like this, where you and I could get on here and say stuff. I was that guy that would, if I liked the sports show, I would call in when I could. Jumbo and Billy, it is more like, country boys, funny comedy. Jackie, Steph Curry's aunt, is on the show. Got to meet her, but they did the sports segment with Terry, and so I was like, oh, cool, they're doing sports. And so I would just email him, based on whatever his segment was, and he was just kind enough to answer a few emails. Most people don't, you get mail and never respond or any of that. And so just started talking back and forth. And then it led to like I said, meeting in Asheville. It was for the comedy festival. That's the first time I saw Roy Wood in person doing comedy. Roy was the bottom person on the list. Like Sinbad was the headliner. Roy was the last name. I got a shirt from the event. Roy's name's at the bottom, and he's went on to do what he's done now. But that's the first time, saw him. This is like 2010, way back.
Way back. And the thing was this: they had a comedy weekend, and they had 6 comedians in 2 nights. But the whole reason for the show up there was the fact that we had all these affiliates, and nobody knew who we were. I mean, it has hurt us. And this was a chance for our listeners to come up and meet us personally. And that's why they sold the joint out. Everybody wanted to come up and lay eyes on John Boy and Billy and the rest of us, and Jackie, Marcy. And we loved it. I mean, they were coming up around us just to talk, and we love meeting them. And Marcy's doing this podcast now, and she's giving all the inside dope on what happened back behind the scenes. And I know you've listened to it, Vinny. It's called, you promote it later, Tater's Big Show Hangover. People should go there and listen because it is great.
Yeah.
Then talking about her, Steph came in high school. He would come into the studio. And the nicest young man, I mean, so polite and soft-spoken, all through high school. And then he was in the studio one day, and I'm not going to take credit for this, but we had the conversation. He wanted to go to Virginia Tech, where his dad went, and they wouldn't offer him a scholarship. And we're sitting there talking. He was kind of down a little bit, and I said, look, if you go to an ACC school or something like that, you may not play till you're a junior. You need to go somewhere where you can play now as a freshman. And I'm not responsible for this, but he went to Davidson, and the rest is history. And then he come back on the show. Excuse me, I'm plugging my phone in. He come back on the show after he's a Hall of Famer, right? And I'm happy to tell you that Steph Curry today, NBA Hall of Famer, is the same. I call him a kid. The same kid as he was when he was 16 years old. The nicest, youngest man ever.
That whole family, because
and Auntie Jackie.
Yeah, she's the big sister I never had. She still texts me, "Hey, little brother." I got a picture of that day. Y'all let Katie and I come over there and watch y'all tape a show. Y'all did one live show and then one pre-recorded show. So there in the studio, you let me come in there and get a picture with y'all. So that was
you took your coverage with Katie.
Yeah, I did. You're right. No lies told there. She been putting up with me for almost 25 years. Come August.
56. So yeah, we got women that have a lot of patience, right?
And look, on that note, see let's see. Let me get my picture down. You outkicked your coverage with Patty.
Yep.
So since we're talking about outkicking coverage.
Yeah, look at her, and then look at me on the right. I mean, you talk about I've kept my coverage. It's 56 years, and putting up with me for 56 years. Are you kidding me? 3 children, 6 grandkids, and we moved back. I lived. Listen to this, Terry. You may not know this. I lived in Atchison, Kansas, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, Rochester, New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, Ponte Vedra, Florida, Charlotte, North Carolina, and now back in the St. Louis area. I've been all over the country.
Yeah, just unbelievable. The whole journey. They would kind of be a joke about it on the big show. Just Hanson knows everybody. There's nobody, and you always you always run into somebody or see somebody in the airport or just some kind of happening like that.
I've like with you. I wasn't a favor. I'm good to people I like. People help me, so yeah, you pay it back, right? And so yeah, I've helped a lot of people over the years, and a lot of people owe me favors, and I like that because if I ever need something, I can get it, and just call them and say, hey, what about this? When I started my company, Musco Lighting, and all these people I've done work with, I put Musco into business when I was at Turner, the lighting company. So I called him up. I said, I'm starting a company. He goes, what do you mean? What do you need? I go, well, how about a contract? He goes, okay. And that's how I started my company. I just went back to people I did favors for. Like I said, I wasn't the brightest child in school, but had some East St. Louis street smarts and got through it all. Oh, you told East St. Louis. I got to tell you about 2 things. The first time I ever met Jackie, and she vaguely remembered this. I was going from Jacksonville to California, and I had a layover in Chicago. And I walk into the gift shop, and there's Jackie and her husband, Bob Kersey, her coach. And I know enough about famous people not to make a fuss because they'll get mobbed. So I didn't. I just laid back. And so I got on the airplane, and I'll be darned if they're not sitting 3 rows up from me. And again, I didn't want to make a fuss, and I don't know if people knew who she was. She had just won all those medals. And so I sent a note up via the flight attendant. I said, I'm Terry Hanson from East St. Louis. I just want you to know that I'm so proud of you, Jackie. And I see the woman give her the note, and then she pops up behind her seat and goes, East St. Louis, get your butt up here. So I went up and sat with her for 2 hours, her and her husband. And then I grew up at Jimmy Connors. And I've told this story before. Jimmy, Dad gave me a job. I was a toll collector on a bridge between St. Louis and East St. Louis. A toll bridge. I was the collector. And I got to know him pretty well. And when I was in D.C., he called me at RFK Stadium. And I don't know if I could have lunch. I hadn't talked to him in 5, 8, 10 years. I went to lunch with him, and it was on personal matters. Dad was sick and wanted some guidance and all that. So afterwards, I said, so you need to go anywhere? And he goes, yeah, I need to go to the Watergate Hotel. And he's wearing a full-length mink coat. Get this. So I put him in my car, and A, I'm a bad driver, and B, I have no sense of direction. So the 3rd time we passed the Washington Monument, he said, you're lost. I said, absolutely, I'm lost. So we get up to a stoplight, and there's a cab. He jumps out of the car and runs over to the cab, and he left my damn car door open. And I'm thinking, what a jerk. And then he comes running back. He goes, I gave the cabbie over there $20. Follow him to the Watergate.
Oh,
That's how I got there, man.
What is it in the water in St. Louis though? I mean, if you just go comedians, if you go athletes, if you go actors, I mean, from Red Fox to Jimmy Connors to Jackie
Chuck
Joyner
Berry.
and Kirsten to
Get Chuck Berry, man.
Yeah, I mean, what is in the water in St. Louis and East St. Louis?
Well, in East St. Louis, that's where Ike and Tina started. Yeah, right there. Miles Davis. Remember Dr. Harry Edwards?
Yeah.
At USC, yeah.
Psychologist, right? Remember with the two guys with the black fists in the air at the Olympics?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Dr. Harry Edwards. I mean, I kept up with all these people. East St. Louis is a fraternity.
I mean, Red Fox, Dick Gregory. I mean, it's,
Chuck Berry.
yeah.
Like I said, Miles Davis. I mean, Catherine Dunham. I mean, there's been all kinds of people from here.
Yeah.
And then a big Cardinals fan that I am. And so I watched him and Chip Carey, if you remember from the Braves, you watched him. I'm repping him right now for endorsements.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He was my intern in Atlanta.
I just saw a little thing on Twitter. It was a preview of a game, Cubs and Braves in '91 at Wrigley. And it started, it was Harry, Skip, and Chip all there, before the game, because it was, 3 generations and how special that was for them. So, and
he was going to work a game with Harry the next season, going to work all year with it. Then Harry ended up passing away before the season started. Now, last night here in St. Louis, I'm watching the game. They're playing Oakland, who's now in Sacramento on their way to Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And so he's got twin sons that are broadcasters, and one, Chris, is with the A's, and the other one, and the one, Stefan, is kind of trying to feel his way. But last night, Stefan and Chris were broadcasting the game together on in Oakland.
Wow.
For the A's, and he talk about a proud papa, and Chip and I, like I said, we're buddies, and I'll sit here watching the game, and I'll get a text from him. What do you think of that? And do you think I should try this? Did you see that? What do you think? And I mean, I love it. I mean, I'm invested anyway. Then that happens, and then not too long ago, he texted me the game. He said, "Are you watching?" And I texted him back in game. I go, "Yeah." And then there was a player on Pittsburgh that had some ties to Ponte Vedra, Florida, which is where I was working in golf. And he says, "So Ponte Vedra, Florida." And incidentally, the mayor of Ponte Vedra, Terry Hanson, watching tonight. He never misses a game. And then my text blew up. I mean, I must have had 60 people contact me.
Now I've heard you say that when you were playing, you were a pitcher and you were a good pitcher, but you said, too short, not tall enough to make it, size wise. If you were coming up today, we've seen Pedro Martinez, we've seen Tim Lincecum. If Terry Hanson is coming up today as a pitcher, how far does Terry's playing career go?
I might not have made a college team. I mean, I had a terrific curveball, 12-6. And that was pretty much it. But the Mets scout that was following me told my dad, and I thought I was going to get drafted. And he said, "Look, if I put a card in on a guy that's 5'8", I might get fired." But I got another story about East St. Louis, though. A buddy by the name of Kenny Gonzalez, I played high school ball with, and he's older than me. And I went up to St. Benedict's my freshman year. He was a senior, and I knew him my whole life. And I'm in Atlanta in soccer. And he calls me. I haven't talked to him in years. And he goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, he coached baseball at the University of Alabama at Montevallo. And he bounced around coaching college. He's now back in Kansas City. And he says, "Hey, listen, I'm going for an interview tomorrow with the Royals to be a scout." I go, "You are?" He goes, "Yep." "You know anybody there?" I said, "I know John Shearholtz." He goes, "Well, there's a start." He was interviewing. So, and I don't think I got him the job, but Kenny got the job. Okay. So he's scouting down in Alabama area. And he goes to a hotel. And the maid walks in and sees all his cards and all his stuff. He goes, "What is this?" He goes, "Well, I'm a scout with the Kansas City Royals." He goes, "Baseball, huh?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I have a son that wants to play Major League Baseball." Well, he's heard this before, right? Oh, you do, huh? Yeah. Well, but everybody's gonna think he's gonna play football, but he really wants to play baseball too. And he goes, "Oh, okay. What's his name?" She goes, "Bo Jackson." And so Kenny was the only person that knew. Every time I go to Alabama, he'd stop by and see Florence, his mama. And so when the draft came up, everybody's thinking, okay, 5th round, 7th round, 8th round, he'd play in the NFL. Not Kenny. The Royals picked him up, and Kenny Gonzalez was the reason why.
Wow.
Isn't that a story?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now
Man.
his son Colin is a scout with the Royals.
Mm.
And then you guys down in that area remember Tennessee baseball. Tony Vitello was my friend. His dad Greg's a buddy of mine, and so Tony is hanging out now with Colin Gonzalez like their dads hung out. And unfortunately, Kenny died when he was 46 with a heart attack. But I'm in touch with Colin now. I'm in touch with Tony, who, as you know, has just been the very first manager to go from college to the major leagues as a manager with the Giants now.
Mhm.
Yes. Again, that St. Louis water, man. Y'all just.
I got to tell you the story because I'm proud of it. And Vinny, you know this. I had a tragedy in my life in 23. My 47-year-old son passed. And, we're not supposed to bury our kids. And Tony and Greg, his daddy, had come to all of our houses for visits. And and this is a setup from Greg because I know Greg well. He's in my wedding. We're driving from my house 5 minutes to downtown Eureka for a restaurant. We're 5-minute drive. And so I'm in the car, and 2 minutes in, the phone rings. And it's Tony. And Greg says, "Hey, Tony, Terry's in the car." And he goes, "Hey," and he starts crying. And he goes, "Oh man, I mean, Joe's my friend, and I mean, this is touching to me." And I said, "Tony, look, man, Joe's gone. Okay, so look, dedicate the season to him. Okay, all right, okay, great." So they're playing and they're playing and they're playing. They're doing well. They're doing well. Now they're in Omaha, and the finals on Monday night. And he calls me Sunday. All the stuff he's got going in Omaha, he calls me and he goes, "I'm thinking about you today because it's Father's Day." I go, "It is." He goes, I'm thinking about you." I said, "Man, you don't know how much I appreciate this." He goes, "Well, okay. Hey, listen, one thing more. What's that? Tune in tomorrow night because we're going to win it for Joe." And guess what? They did.
Wow.
How
How about that?
Wow.
Yeah,
That's strong.
Yeah, it sure is. Man.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wow. And see, that's just stuff that nobody knows, you know.
Nope.
And like you said, he's thinking about you. Like you said, all he's got going on out there, tickets and family and parents and hotel and practice and getting all that, and still took the time to.
Well, I knew Tony as a baby. And like I said, he came to every house we lived in because Greg, a soccer guy, wanted to meet Pele and Beckenbauer. So he always showed up to my house. And he came to Florida on vacation. So he and Joe would get off to the side and they'd play. And so he knew him very well. And so I'm a Cardinals fan, of course, and now I'm also a Giants fan.
Mhm.
And you're basketball guys too. So the only teams I've ever rooted for in my life, Alabama, I'm sorry, but I paid tuition there. Football, Cardinals and baseball, and then whatever team John Beeline was coaching in basketball, because I know him and his brother was my assistant coach. Remember John when he was in Michigan? Great college coach. And now Tony with the Tennessee, and now with the Giants. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that as well.
Now with Ted Turner having the Braves and the Hawks, did he ever want the Falcons or try to make a run at getting the Falcons too? Or
of course he did. Of course he did. And he wanted everything. And I, like I told you, and you read this, but when I first got there, I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Of course, I didn't know what I was doing in my whole career. I mean, the joke is I wasn't qualified for any job I ever had. So I go in to work for him as the head of sports, and he says, we got to go out and get these properties. And I said, oh, yeah, okay, well, yeah. And so he started on college football. And so he says to me, okay, I want this college football package. And first cable ever football on NCAA. Never had a cable game ever. They were ABC for many, many years, and then CBS for a year, and now cable. And it's a Saturday night prime time. So he says to me, I want that. And we want something. He wants something. He wanted it. And I said, well, I did my research. And I said, well, look, it's going to be ESPN and USA Network are the two. And we're going to be the Johnny come lately. And he goes, okay, well, do your research. So I came back and I said, well, look, I think ESPN is going to bid $10 million. And it's sealed bid. But I know the NCAA, they'll go behind our back and they'll go back to them. So I said, he said, what's going to happen? I said, well, I think they'll come in after that at 12. And I don't think that USA Network is going to even be in the ball game, quite frankly. He goes, 12, huh? I go, yep. He goes, bid 18. I said, 18? He goes, yeah. And that's when he told me that famous line, Hanson, if you were Thomas Edison, we'd be sitting in the dark. And he said, you don't understand this, man. People don't do business with me. We got to put so much money on the table, they can't say no. And that's what we did. That's how we got Virginia, Georgetown. That's how, quite frankly, that's how we got Louisville and Kentucky in basketball. We put a lot of money on the table. Wow. And so that's what we did. And to show you, he connected the dots like nobody I've ever seen. He called me and he said, so listen, are there any college football teams in San Diego? I said, yeah, there's two bad ones, San Diego State and San Diego University. He said, well, we got Thursday night games? I go, we do. He goes, put them on Thursday night. I go, but they're awful. He says, you don't get it again. Come to my office. I went to his office again, and he's always teaching me stuff. He goes, okay, so there's something called Mission Cable out in the San Diego area. I go, yeah. He goes, how much do we pay these teams? I said, $400,000 a piece. Okay. How do they get the money? I said, we wire it. Okay. Well, Mission Cable doesn't have CNN on it. So I want to give a $400,000 check to the head of Mission Cable, and he's going to present it to the president of San Diego State at halftime, and your cameras are going to be watching it, and he's going to do that, and you know what? He's going to put CNN on Mission Cable, and guess what? He did. Now that's big thinking right there.
Yeah.
And then when the Superstation starts, I mean, it's just busting all over America. And Glenn Diamond was my producer for the Long Wait October, the Emmy baseball thing. Excuse me, but he's also a producer in basketball. And he's going down to do a shoot around with the Hawks and the Celtics. And they're in the Omni. So he goes down and get an interview with Larry Bird. And so, okay, so the game that night they're at the shoot around and the scores table, everything's set up. So the phones are out there and everything else. So Glenn calls me. And he goes, Terry, I'm here on the floor. And he goes, Larry won't do the interview. I go, why? He said, because he's Larry. He just didn't want to do it. And I said, can you get him over there by the phone? And he goes, just a second. Larry, and so Larry walks over and he's just listening. And I said, so anyway, Larry, if you are on the game, your mom can see this game tonight in French Lick, Indiana. No way. He goes, I said, way. She can. Where? What channel? I said, the Superstation. All she's got to do is find somebody with cable television and get TBS Sports. And he did the interview and she watched the game.
Oh, man. Unbelievable.
Connecting the dots, right?
Absolutely. Well, we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your evening to come on here like you always do.
Always fun. It's always always learning something.
Yes, took the words right out of my mouth.
And we've talked about this, Terry. I'm going to bring Chip Carey on here with me some night, and I'll sit back and shut up on like I did tonight, and we'll let Chip carry the ball, and you guys will enjoy that because I know you watched him with the Braves all those years.
Yeah.
And Skip, I got to tell you a quick story about Skip. I was Skip's boss, and we were buddies. And Skip was known for giving a lot of grief to the suits, he called them. People like me who wore suits to work. And he always had that reputation. So he's my friend, and I'm now his boss. And I said, look, I know how you are. I'm comfortable in my own skin. Just, swing from the heels. I don't care. And he did. So one night, he's doing a Hawks game. He did the Hawks too. And he's doing a Hawks game with Fred Hickman. Remember Fred, CNN guy?
Oh yeah.
So he and Fred are doing a game, and so they used to have a promo on what's going to be on the movie is going to be on after the game. So we had what's called drop-ins. They give him the thing to read, and he would read it. So he's reading it. He goes, so tonight on Hombre, Paul Newman plays a white man and he stops. He goes, what? Paul Newman plays a white man? I mean, Will Chamberlain, he couldn't do this. Nope, not Will Chamberlain. Richard Pryor, nope, he couldn't do this. Now, the teams are running up and down the damn court. And he ain't even talking about the game. He can't do it. And so, anyway, then he says, who writes this garbage? And so I go into work the next day, and I've already got 3 phone calls from the guy from promotions, the head of the department. And he says, can you come up here? I went, sure. So I go up to his office. It's a setup. He's got his entire staff in his conference. And he walks me in there and said, I just thought you'd like to meet the people who write that garbage. And I sat there with him, and we talked a little bit, and they were jumping me pretty good. And then I get a little annoyed. I go, look, what's your job? And look at me and go, what? I go, your job is to promote, right? And you had to promote the game. Hombre was on after the game, right? And he went, yeah. I go, I guarantee you right now, everybody knew that Hombre was coming on after the game.
Yeah.
So stick it in your pipe. Smoke it, okay?
Yeah.
And then he teased me all the time. I was at a Braves game one time sitting in the I said to Patty and the kids, I always sat with Ted and did business, and I said, let's sit in the outfield, and I eat peanuts and drink Coke. And I did not know this. A center field camera saw that I was there, and he put the camera on me. And Skip says, if I had a body like that, I'd be hiding in the outfield too. And then we had we brought the TBS Evening News in. We bought a show, and we put our own TBS Evening News on. And then the Hawks were awful. And in those days, when they were losing big in the fourth quarter, Skip would always say, well, folks, if you're going to walk the dog, now's the time to walk the dog. So we got the TBS Evening News on, and Ted says to me, Terry, you got to get into Skip. I mean, he's telling people to leave. So I tell him, I said, Skip, look, man, you can't do this anymore. So I'm sitting at home that night, and I'm watching. And he goes, well, right about now is when I would tell you to go walk the dog. But my boss, Terry Hanson, says I can't. And I'm sitting at home watching, and I'm going, what the heck? He said, I can't. He said, here's what you're going to do, folks. It's time to walk the dog. So go ahead and walk the dog, but make sure that you fly Delta, you eat drink Coca-Cola, and chew Red Man tobacco, and be back in time for the TBS Evening News.
Man, just tiptoeing around it, dude. Finding a way to still do it. That's
great, man. Well, listen, thank you for the invite.
Yes, sir.
We certainly appreciate it.
And thank you for coming. And
Terry, I gotta tell you what, Terry, you make the whole show. You're carrying this dude.
Yeah, he is.
Well,
He is. He is.
I'm glad that 12 years ago he reached out to me. We just had our anniversary of him saying, "Hey, you want to do a show?" And I said, "Why not?" And like you said, Terry, like sometimes you just got to say yes. You don't know how you're going to do it, and for the first probably 8 months, nobody was listening, and now like I said, we've been doing it for 12 years. It's been a good run.
Oh man, and I'm full of stories, and I'll tell you this last one. I get my first job in pro sports. I've always wanted to work in pro sports. All I wanted to do since a kid. And I'm the PR director and the marketing guy in Rochester, New York. And I get up there and I'm feeling high, man. And I get in there and PR and marketing, and I sit there and I went, I've never taken a PR class. I don't know what marketing is. I don't know what I'm doing. And I uncharacteristically, I'm freaking out. I mean, I'm going, what am I going to do? And then my major professor at Southeast Missouri State happens to call me. And he goes, I read in the paper where you're now in Rochester. I'm now in Trenton State in New Jersey. I said, oh, okay. He says, do you take on interns? And the notion hadn't even crossed my mind. And I went, well, I need help, but I don't have any money. And he said, well, let me send a guy up to see you. So he sent this kid up to see me. He's like, I'm 30 something. He's like 21. And I'm nervous. Now, uncharacteristically, I'm nervous. And I'm interviewing him. And I don't know what to ask him. I don't know what to do. And then it hit me overnight. I said, look, I'm a coach. And he's going to be my player. So I just coached him. And then every job I ever had, whether it be Atlanta or Florida or Raycom or wherever, I wasn't a boss. I was a coach. I knew how to coach. So when I managed people, I really coached them. And when I was helping you, Vinny, I was coaching you.
Grateful to have it.
That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Thank you much, and we'll look forward to having you
Always
back.
appreciate it.
Tell Patty hello.
And Katie as well. And Terry, you keep up the good work, brother.
Yeah, I got a Kate of my own now, too. So I'm trying to be like Vinny.
Yeah, well, hey, do your best.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Terry.
All right, bye.
So much. Terry Hanson, head of TBS, NAIA, golf, John Boy and Billy Show, Raycom, so many things. Gonna be back on again in the future. And you heard him, he's gonna bring Chip Carey on sometime. So y'all stay tuned for when that happens. We'll update y'all. So that'd be cool talking to Chip, man.
But the one takeaway other than Ted Turner was one of one. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get political, but billionaires used to do stuff. Like the Vanderbilts gave us universities, the Rockefellers gave us stuff for the arts, right? Like all these things. And Ted Turner was basically like, I'm a billionaire. I'm going to start 24-hour news. And like Terry said, like, hey, it doesn't make sense. You put some money on it. It'll make sense. Like, that's a fun billionaire, like just doing it because you want to do it. That's cool to me. Like, that's the billionaire, the rich person. I would think I would want to be like, why wouldn't I want to buy this team or do like that? Just seems like fun stuff to do. Like from but Turner Classic Movies probably is his lasting legacy as far as he was putting movies on that, like, not to get too heavy about it, but some of those old movies, they were throwing out. Like they were still on film. They didn't get converted to TV. They were still on the old reeled film. And Ted started this thing of preserving those movies, right? Which is great. It's crazy to think they were just throwing movies out, but they were, saving the Casablancas, those, but like some of those other ones that just came out, like saving those. And Ted really spurred that. Hey, these Turner Classics, it's still a thing on the HBO app today. Talking about these old movies and everything. So that kind of preservation, and then he did the whole Captain Planet thing, saving the Earth and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's one of one, and not to say that he was a saint, where none of us are saints, but that's the kind of person you want to be. That's a good point. And the second thing is, if you want stuff to happen, you got to do it. It's as simple as that. There's a theory: the more stuff you do, the more of those Ted Turner's watching you in his hotel room, right? Just the more stuff that you do, you increase your chances of things happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, answer a tweet from some random dude you didn't know. You want to do this show? Sure, why not? And then I look back at all the stuff that we've been able to do, and it's just, like I've talked before, I start looking at some of this stuff. I'm like, man, we did talk to that person. We did go that place. Like, it's crazy, when you think about that. But it's basically, I forget what the theory is, but if you stay at home and you keep doing the same thing, you're going to be stuck. But do the thing. Most people that have done anything worth, like, it sounds hokey. You take that first step. You just do it. Because that's what my dad taught me, is most people are kind of faking their way through. Right? Nobody feels qualified for what they're doing. As you move up and you're like, how's it? Then you realize other people just kind of faking it too. Just do the thing. Yeah. Just do it. I started a new job, talked to somebody, and she asked me, "You moved from Kentucky to Iowa?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "How'd you do that?" I said, sometimes you got to take a chance. It sounds hokey, but all greatness starts with a chance.
That's true.
You had to say, "Hey, Katie, how you doing?" 25, 30 years ago, right? Every great love story, great everything, you just take a chance. Yeah. So that's my motivation talk of the day, is just take a chance. You don't know.
You really don't.
You don't know what's out there. Like, I can't remember what it was. One of those times I'm covering the Cats and I walk into the arena, I'm like, I'm really doing this. This is crazy. I didn't go to school for this, but I'm sitting right here next to, it was, Andy Katz and all that. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not going to Rupp Arena and sitting at the table in the back room with Oscar Combs. I'm like, that's that guy. What am I doing? And then you realize we all just kind of going through. It's like, that's my thing. That's why I try to tell my girls, like, you don't know. And when they were little, I was trying to get them into basketball because that's what I wanted. But they have found other things, and you take that chance. There you go. You find out you like something.
That's right.
Anyway,
that's right.
That's my motivational.
Yeah, inspirational.
That's right.
We got a sponsor too. A couple of these next few episodes. I didn't get it in before, Terry, so I will play it now. And we'll let that roll before we wrap this.
Today's show is sponsored by Sheer Alternatives. Explore all natural products, eco-friendly, fluoride-free toothpaste, and clean dental care made with natural ingredients. Redefining wellness through clean ingredients, reduced waste, and eco-friendly care. Go to sheeralternatives.com. Not only do they do toothpaste, but mouthwash, oral care products, sea moss, and more. So make sure to check it out today, sheeralternatives.com.
So there you go.
All right.
Sponsor read in. Appreciate Sheer Alternatives being a sponsor on the show, and upcoming episodes, you'll hear their ad. We'll make sure we get that in next week and the following week. Appreciate them. Appreciate Terry Hanson. Can't thank him enough. Appreciate Terry Brown. Can't thank him enough. Knees are sore. Been carrying us for 14 years.
Well, I know Cubs and the Braves are playing, but I'm okay because the Cubs beat the Reds in a homestand sweep. And so
Okay.
the only time I tweet about the Cubs is when they beat the Reds. Like people have figured that out. I'm only fly the W when they beat the Reds. and 3 walk-offs and a beat down on the 4th game. Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, they made pretenders out of Reds because they was trying to be up there in first or second, and now they down. They don't. Y'all beat them down to last place in the division, man.
Yeah. So I'll come back in the next time they play. Yeah, man. I'm not diehard enough to be. And this is the thing too. This is why I got out of baseball. The Cubs won 20 out of 23 games, and then they lost 2. And the Cubs fans, oh, this is terrible. Like, no, man, I can't live like that. I can't live like that. So there you go.
They are playing, and the Braves got them last night, but you couldn't lose the first home game after Ted Turner and Bobby Cox passed. So Atlanta had to get that one. But they both the top 2 teams in the National League. They're both good teams, so we'll see how far they make it, and if they can keep it going all summer long and all that. It might be myself against you and Kate in October sometime. You never know.
Well, and you notice I didn't tweet nothing all year about the Lakers until they beat the Rockets 2 times in early April. I said, I'm going to keep doing this till Vinny says something to me.
I just have to take it, man. I had to take it.
I wasn't tweeting at you. I was just like, look at this here. Beat the Rockets twice. Look at this. That's amazing. I said, you're gonna see something. I know you're gonna see something. And then you responded.
I'm gonna be a glutton for punishment because you said that and it made me think of this. I saw it earlier. Let's see if I can get this to do right. I'm trying not to be like Kevin Hale, around the shots. But yeah, I saw it because it's the anniversary. I'm a glutton for punishment. With you being a Lakers fan, it's close to anything positive you'll get from me when it comes to the Lakers. But today is the day that
is it Derek Fisher shot?
If I can do it, yeah. Let's see. Where is it at? Here we go. Yeah. Derek Fisher hit the shot to beat. Let's see if I can get it a little bigger. Let's see.
But that was a crazy. That season was a crazy season. It just was. Kobe was going back and forth to Chicago. It was just crazy,
Look at that defense. Manu's all over.
Yeah. I was hooting and hollering at my house when that happened. Because I think it was a Sunday evening maybe, and I was just like, man. But look at it. It was 73-74.
That's what I was. I didn't realize that it was that. I was like, Lord.
Yeah. We don't need to go back to those early 2000s game. They were terrible. And let me just and that's the thing too is people talk about the 04 Lakers, like they got the Spurs up out of the paint, the defending champion Spurs out of the paint. Like, look, I think Tim Duncan is great. If he's 1-2 power forward all time, whatever. But this notion that the Spurs didn't have stinker series against the Lakers is crazy.
Yeah, they had the little roll shake Shaq with the decoy lob trying to throw it up, which was a viable option given there's on 0.4 seconds. And I was just looking at that action, man, just
and the shot before that was great by Duncan.
Yeah.
A lot of times I call that the Sean Wood special. It's the shot before the shot,
which
a lot of times is more difficult than the shot they remember. I think was it Page, whoever from North Carolina hit the shot before Chris Jenkins shot. Yeah. Of course, the Sean Wood shot. Like, you forget that was it Diebler for Ohio State hit the 3 to tie it against Kentucky in 2011. Like, this always is the shot before the shot.
Yeah.
But people remember the actual shot and everything. But always fun to talk. It's just stories, man. It's just like sometimes you have to Forrest Gump your way through things, and you just end up in the right place at the right time. Like, how did I get here? Like, what did? Okay.
Absolutely.
So be a good person, put that energy out there, and things happen.
Well said. Well said. We appreciate everybody that watched and listened right now, and will do so on podcast or on demand at their convenience. Appreciate the BS3 Network. Appreciate Terry Hanson, Terry Kittle Brown, and be back next week seeing what's changed and what we're keeping an eye on and what's happening in the UK. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what we'll be getting the ulcer over. That's what we'll be panicking about.
Gotta do something.
Appreciate y'all. Cats Talk Wednesday, BS3 Network. Go Cats. We'll be back next week. See y'all later.